Hello and welcome, or welcome back, whichever the case may be. My name is Walt, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Lost Vape Hyperion. Starting with the manufacturer specifications, this unit uses an Evolve DNA 100C chipset. It provides 1 to 100 watts in 0.5 watt increments. It will provide 200 degrees to 600 degrees Fahrenheit in 5-degree increments. It can also be switched to centigrade. It can utilize from a 0.1 to 3 ohm coils. Coil materials supported are nickel, titanium, SS316, SS430, Ka1, Ni80, and Ni90. Input voltage is from 3 volts to 4.2 volts, and the current range is from 0.5 amps to 30 amps. It uses Type C 3 amp charging, has the following protections: atomizer protection, low resistance protection, short circuit protection, overheat protection, low voltage step down protection, and reverse polarity protection. Continuing on with the specification, the mod has a number of different modes. We have replay, we have boost. This is a wattage mode that provides a small boost at the beginning of the puff. We have temp control, we have standard wattage. You can lock the adjustments by tapping the fire button 3 times, and you can lock the entire mod by tapping the fire button 5 times. Physical aspects of the mod: it's made out of zinc alloy and silicon rubber. It has authentic leather covering. It is IP68 waterproof and dustproof with shock resistance. The dimensions are 44.5 millimeters by 34.5 millimeters by 5.59 millimeters. I weighed it at 299.2 grams, and that's with the battery, addy, and liquid. In other words, as you would have it in your hand as you vape it. And it will accept 3 types of batteries: a 21700, 21650, and an 18650. For the 18650, you'll need an adapter that does not come with the mod. Fun fact moment. This mod is on its second release at this point. The first release was called this. Now, looking at that, it's easy to see why it quickly took on the alias of Scrotum. So, brilliant marketing there, Lost Vape. Yep. Hey, Walt, what you been up to? Hey, I just been vaping on my scrotum. You want to try vaping on my scrotum? What were they thinking? So let's take a look at the mod. The silicon rubber is well molded. It's really nicely done. It presents itself real well. It looks real sharp. The leather itself is tucked in very nicely all the way around the edges. It has a little bit of a cush to it, but I don't believe there's so much cush that it's going to compress and show dents after time. The buttons themselves, appear to be very, very well sealed inside of the unit. They offer a real nice tactile response, real easy to tell when they're engaged. The fire button is pretty good sized, and it's real easy to trigger and to find. It falls under my index finger real nice. The screen is recessed just a little bit, and it has a tendency to be recessed enough that my fingers don't touch it and smudge it up too awful much. Well, that's kind of a plus as well. The cover for the USB is tight. It's a little difficult to get in and out, but that's probably a good thing, in as much as that's a water seal as well. The trim piece that connects the rubber to the leather is metal. It's held in by 6 screws. It appears that the labeling on it is done nicely. It's a matte, so it doesn't have a tendency to smudge. Now, it will be interesting in a year as to whether it still presents itself well. All my other Lost Vape mods have pretty much lost a lot of their paint within about a year's time, so we'll see how that works out. All in all, it would be my opinion that this mod would present itself well in any kind of a environment. It has a look to me that is rugged and at the same time refined. The 510 connector on the top of the mod is rather large for a single battery mod, coming in at just over 29 millimeters in diameter. In this picture, the 510 platter looks a little bit rugged, but it isn't. I polished it up, and it did polish up real nice. It's well secured with 3 screws into the mod itself. We have a center pin that's either copper or brass, and it is spring-loaded. The battery is held in by a screw-on battery cap. There's a pull-out ring that you use to unscrew the cap, and the little tab on it has actually been recessed, so it's nice and easy to get your fingernail underneath it. The vent holes have a membrane inside that are meant to blow out if the battery does go into thermal runaway, and obviously vent the mod in that condition. The threads on the cap are very nice. They start very easily. You will find that it offers quite a bit of resistance as you screw the cap down because of the water sealing, but it does seat very nicely. On the inside of the cap, there's a small polarity marking. Again, the whole thing isn't finished that well. And then at the bottom of the battery well, you'll see a plus marking as well. It's rather small. I debated a long time while I was doing this video whether I was going to actually go through the menu or not. It's been covered so many times by so many other people, and it really is a super simple menu to use. When you're vaping it, if I can keep my fingers out of the way, okay, that's what you're going to see. You'll see the wattage actually highlighted, and everything else not. On the very top of the mod, on the left-hand side, you're going to have the resistance of the coil. Then you're going to have a little picture of a battery to kind of give you an idea of how much battery life there is left. And then to the right, you have the actual percentage of the battery that you have left on the mod. And this is pretty darn accurate, quite frankly. I charged the battery up to 4.15 volts, put it in here, and it read 97%. And it used this thing right down to like 0% before it quit. And it was at like 3.1, still enough to charge it again, so it didn't go dead. So it worked out pretty good. The screen that you see is actually the top, okay, the top menu. So if you use the up and down buttons, you can see it'll scroll through, okay, the readouts on the screen. So we go to the top one, and then I'll press the center button, which is a set button, okay, and it highlights that one differently. Now I can go through and I can scroll through all the different modes. Okay. Once I find the mode I want, I can hit the center again and it's set. And underneath there'll be other settings that are pertinent to that particular mode. So on all these settings you do the same thing. You go down to here, you press the center, and now I can adjust that if I want to. Press the center again and it's set. Same thing with the temperature. Now down in the settings themselves, you can go into here and there are a number of different things. You can see what they are and you can kind of play with that. Okay, puff info is kind of interesting because after you take a puff, if you want to see how many watts it used and what the curve looked like and whatnot, that'll show you. So yeah, it's real simple to navigate. The replay is just a little bit different than the rest of the modes in as much as you choose it. Okay, you'll go down, from there you can say, yep, that's what I want by hitting the center button. You can go down here and set, go inside of that and set the wattage, and then you take a puff or two, or however you find that perfect puff, and then you use your up and down arrows to go to save puff, and then press the select button. And now it's playing, and you just leave it alone from that point, and it'll recreate that puff every time. So that's a real quick rundown of how the menu works. It is really simple. It's really intuitive, at least I believe so. And I really don't think anybody would have too much problems with it. Okay, so next up, we're going to do some electrical testing and see if this thing really lives up to all the manufacturer's specifications, and obviously, simply enough, just how well it performs. All of these tests are done in wattage mode just to kind of get an idea of how well the mod performs as to how well it's advertised. In the first test, we've set the mod for 20 watts. The true resistance is 0.964 ohms, and the mod read that as 0.973, pretty close. The mod put out 4.64 volts, which developed 22.3 watts, overperforming by a little bit. Now make note, on the left-hand side of the graph, there's kind of a strange looking step up thing going on. You got two steps. It comes up to something like maybe 2.5 volts, then drops back down to 0 and then fires. This is 50 millisecond firing delay, and it's honestly something I've never seen before. This is somewhat of an anomaly. I don't know what they're accomplishing with this. The second test uses the same resistance as the first test, but the power is set for 100 watts just to see what it can do. The mod output 8.6 volts, and that brought it up to 76 watts. You have the same fire delay in there, 50 milliseconds. I would say the reason that it's only putting out 76 watts is because it reached its ability to boost at 8.6 volts. The next test we set at 45 watts, and we reduced the resistance to a true resistance of 0.496, mod reading that at 0.5 ohms. The mod put out 4.92 volts. You got your 50 millisecond delay, and the mod reached 48.8 watts, again overperforming just a little bit. Next one, we used the same resistance as the previous, but we pushed it up to 100 watts to see what it could do. Mod boosted again. It's putting out 7.32 volts. You got your 50 millisecond firing delay, and it output 108 watts, actually again overproducing. Now notice on the top of this waveform, there's no hash marks on the top of it. There's no noise on this. This is a very clean DC signal. They've got this filtered out very nicely. The next test, 50 watts, and we reduce the resistance to a true resistance of 0.251 ohms. The mod read that at 0.258. And the mod voltage was 3.72 volts. Again, you got your 50 millisecond firing delay, and the mod put out 55.1 watts, overperforming yet again. Using the same resistance as the last test, we pushed it up to 100 watts. The mod output 5.08 volts, again boosting. We've got a fire delay of 50 milliseconds, and the mod put out 102.8 watts. Once again, overproducing. The next one, reduce the resistance yet again to 0.125 ohms true, and mod read that at 0.138. Push this up to 100 watts, and we've got 3.72 volt coming out of the mod, a 50 millisecond firing delay, and the mod power was 110.7 watts. This was a test just to get a flavor for how it might react in temperature control. You really can't do too awful much. I test this with the lid off of the Addy, so you don't have a realistic environment here, but the wattage was set for 39 watts available to the mod. The set temperature was 425 degrees centigrade. The mod read the resistance initially at 0.2 ohms. The mod start voltage was 6.52 volts, and then it reduced to 4.84 volts. Now note here, we set that thing for available wattage of 39 watts. This is typical of Evolve. It really doesn't care. It started the wattage at 81.7 watts and ended at 45 watts. But it did give a real nice temperature control vape. I measured it as best I could with a thermometer, and it was approximately putting out 335 degrees Fahrenheit once it was stabilized. Another note on that, the fact that it's only putting out 335 degrees Fahrenheit does not necessarily mean that that's what it would do under normal circumstances. Like I said, this is under abnormal circumstances with an open Addy on the top. Okay, so I'm going to try to wrap this up now. And you notice I'm looking over, I made myself some notes just in what I want to cover here. So overall, just to kind of, like I say, wrap it up, it is nice in the hand. I do appreciate the weight. there again, I mean, that's just me. I just like the weight of it. Not too heavy, not too light. It's just fine. It's not sticky, and yet it isn't slippery. It doesn't smudge up. I like all that. It'll sit nicely on a flat surface. When you set it down on a table or whatnot, it'll sit there nicely. It isn't tippy. And the battery life is what you'd expect from a 21700. It lasts a good long time. Now, this mod doesn't have a puff counter, so I really don't know, how many puffs you can get out of it or whatever, but just from using a number of 21700 mods in the past, this is right up there as far as I can tell. So I guess with that is pretty much everything I have to say about it. Just a real nice mod, and I'm going to give it a full 5 stars, just because it does everything the manufacturer says it will do, as far as I can tell with the testing that I'm capable of. So with that, I very much appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.